All right, music fans, welcome. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and me. Sad news from the music world. And this one you have to kind of dig a little bit into because I didn't see this on any of the so called classic rock websites the last few days, but this popped up in one of my mainstream news feeds. So I figured I would do a little tribute to this guy, Greg Sutton. I don't know if you know who Greg Sutton is. He passed away on Sunday at the age of 74. No cause of death given. Worked with Andy Kaufman, Bob Dylan, and was in the band Lone Justice. The picture that's out there kind of makes him look like Peter Wolf from the Jay Giles band to some degree. So here's the scoop on this. And again, no cause of death given. Greg Sutton, a songwriter and musician who recorded as a solo artist, was a member of the band Lone Justice, another forgotten about, focus-tested, out-of-existence band. Toured with Bob Dylan and was the musical director for comedian Andy Kaufman. He died last Sunday in Los Angeles. He was 74. No cause of death, like I'm saying here. Sutton joined Lone Justice as a bassist when the lineup started to change after the group signed to Geffen Records. And he was a key participant in the LA group's second and last album, Shelter. That's probably their biggest song, Shelter. This was back in 1986. Co-writing the songs Dreams Come True and Inspiration, he also worked with lead singer Maria McKee, who was really one of a kind as far as her vocals. I was really into Maria McKee for a bit. Anyway, she had a solo album in 1989, and he also co-wrote songs on there. The songs Breathe and This Property is Condemned. Before joining that group, he played in Dylan's band. Yes, we're talking about Bob Dylan during the early 80s. And it was captured on an album called Real Live, which included Mick Taylor and Ian McClagan. So this guy must have been a pretty decent musician, Greg Sutton. He was associated with Andy Kaufman because they became friends in the 4th grade. And he ended up being his music director in the comedian's club days until his death, including a legendary show at Carnegie Hall in 1979. In the 90s, his focus turned more toward being a songwriter. And among the songs he co-penned was one with Curtis Stigers, the great, here's another forgotten about great musician. So this whole video is about forgotten about great musicians. Curtis Stigers and his song You're All That Matters to Me, which was the follow-up to I Wonder Why, which was a big hit here in the States. That song became a number 6 hit in the UK and remains one of Curtis's signature songs today. This is Stigers talking here. Greg Sutton was my dear old friend. I learned so much working with him. He was one of the most talented and unique characters I've met in the music business, a great songwriter, bassist, guitarist, and he had that high, soulful voice of an angel who smoked a pack and a half of Camels a day. I always said you would swear he was the American member of the Rolling Stones. He was so edgy and cool. He called me Jackie, and I called him Slink because of his way of walking and moving. Greg had amazing stories, and he lived a rock and roll life. I imagine Greg and his late wife, Frito, a painter and artist, are now together again, having a smoke and talking great music and doing artistic things. He was as colorful as they come. This world is an infinitely less cool and soulful place without Greg Sutton. That is Curtis Stigers talking there. The great Curtis Stigers, who most people have forgotten about. In the 1970s, get this, Greg Sutton was a member of a group called KGB, and it didn't it didn't feature Vladimir Putin. The band had Barry Goldberg and Carmine Appice in it, so that was a pretty interesting trio, or maybe it was a four-piece, not sure here, but those two guys, Carmine and Barry, are in there along with Greg Sutton. He was subsequently a member of a band called the Pets. They recorded for Arista. Following the breakup of that group, he signed with Columbia and released a solo debut, Soft as a Sidewalk. He also had a stint as the bassist in Tommy Two-Tone. That's interesting. Sutton was especially proud of his time in Dylan's band, saying in an interview, Bob is likely to call any song at any time and try playing it in any style. You just have to be ready. And he could see that I knew almost all of his songs because I idolized the guy. I still do. Bob realized I knew his stuff so well that although Mick Taylor was the band leader who chose the musicians, when we were on stage, Bob would talk to me about song keys and what we were about to do, as well as other more comical things. So there you go. Pretty talented musician here. Didn't get a lot of ink in the usual classic rock places for some reason. It's because classic rock has kind of moved on, in some regards. It depends on who it is. But this guy clearly hanging out with Bob Dylan, Curtis Stigers, Carmine Appice, or Apogee, if you want to say his name that way. Again, the Curtis Stigers thing is awesome. But Greg Sutton, Lone Justice. If anything, do yourself a favor and go listen to some Lone Justice if you haven't heard that band from the 80s. Just a remarkable, should have been even bigger than they were type of band. And Greg Sutton, obviously, an interesting character and a great musician. So 74 years, no cause of death, but, that's what we get typically these days. And maybe we'll find out he was suffering for a long time, and this is, just the culmination of that. Hopefully it's not just going to be one of those, gee, he was here one day, but see, you don't get any testimony like that in any of these articles. Like, yeah, I talked to him on Saturday, he was great. Sunday, he wasn't here anymore. It's just bizarre to me. It's just bizarre that we don't get more information. But thoughts and prayers to his family, of course. He was obviously a very interesting person, and so certain people are going to miss him a lot, Curtis Stigers. The rest of the world, it's just a little blip, I guess, and we just move on. So that's what life is, unfortunately, these days. When you read these stories, oftentimes you have to read into them to understand what they're actually trying to say in the story. In this case, I think, though, it's just a tribute to a guy who was very artistic and very prolific. And so that, I guess, is the most important thing we can glean from the life of Greg Sutton. All right, done with this video, folks. Please, if you like the content here, consider supporting this channel via Patreon or YouTube memberships. And don't forget about my radio partner over on Modern Retro Radio, playing all of the music that other radio stations just refuse to play. All of this focus testing creates an atmosphere where a band like Lone Justice, for instance, people have mostly forgotten about that band because we don't have the kind of radio out there that would continue to occasionally play a band like that. I mean, certainly they deserve some airplay here and there. All right, thanks for watching. See you soon.